Episode 16 will be Iain MacArthur. Iain is a right back, formerly of Elgin City and Inverness, Caley Thistle, and also spent a year playing professionally in the top league in New Zealand. Iain talks to us about his time in the Highland League, winning the treble with Elgin City. Gives us his greatest 11 and what it's like to play under Pele, Paterson at both Elgin and Inverness, Caley Thistle. Hope you enjoy the episode. Episode 16 is Iain MacArthur. Iain is a right back. You could be predominantly.
Yeah, predominantly right back and latterly sweeper, I suppose, when they lost a bit of pace. So
okay, yeah. Multi-positional defender, let's just say. For Caley, Elgin, any other clubs you played in New Zealand? You just
played for North Shore United in New Zealand for a season as well. Lee.
Yeah. So was that your only 3 clubs, or did you juniors or anything?
Juniors, yeah. Played junior football for 3 years with Bishop Mill United at a time that, juniors was really strong.
Yep.
Elgin had 3 sides, New Elgin, Calberfee and Bishop Mill United, and we had some tremendous players on the Bishop Mill United side that could have probably gone out and played a higher level if they'd wanted to.
Was this back in the day when Elgin, Bishop Mill United were playing at Borough Briggs still?
Yes,
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that made the difference back in the day when you could actually go to a legitimate stadium and watch a junior team play football? You would get proper crowds back at these games as well.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just think the juniors were quite a high standard in those days. Yeah. We'd played games against Calberfee over in New Elgin and also Dean's Hawk, and played against, Barker Thistle's always had a fantastic setup as well, good pitch. And, it's just decent guys. When you've just left school and you're in with adults and, you're looking to find your way in life, really. Being involved in football is just a fantastic stepping stone with some great people involved in the setups there.
It's kind of like it brings you into adulthood a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah. Football dressing room. I'm an assistant manager and a manager of different teams and things like that. But with adults, I'm an assistant manager. And it's a different place, a dressing room, isn't it? It's full of characters.
Oh,
yeah.
It's banter's brilliant.
Banter's unreal. Said that before. I've worked on building sites. I've worked in all sorts of places. Football banter's just different. And it's not for everyone. It's sometimes banter can be a wee bit hard, especially back in your own day, and you've probably seen a lot harder things than we're used to these days. But we're going to go back a little bit to start off with.
Okay.
So my first question is the same with absolutely everyone, and it's how good a football player you as a kid, and what age did you realise you had a wee bit of potential?
Okay. I wasn't any standout, brought up in Les Murdy as a lot of my pals were, and we just used to play football morning, noon and night. As soon as you were home from school, the jersey were down, and big 5-a-side game or 10-a-side game, whatever it would be, front of the house or down at the park. And I managed to play for the primary school team. That was East End. Most of my pals played for.
I can imagine it was a pretty good school team, was it?
Yeah, we won. We did win the league. I've always had a game. I always got a game. In fact, captained the East End team, being a defender.
Yeah,
I was fortunate enough to captain a few of the youth teams growing up, but I didn't stand out. Players like Gary Wood and Russell Mackay himself, they were fantastic. They were above the level that we were at. I could see that at an early age. Woody was up front and Russell was in midfield and scored a rake of goals from there. So, I was fortunate enough to play with some really good players in the East End team. And then when we kind of went on to the academy team, the majority of the team comprised of the East End players. So again, Woody and Russell excelled in there and were eventually, I think, put on S form with Motherwell. Russell had a few opportunities later in his career, but Gary went on to play junior football. Never understood how he was at Elgin City early days, but I never understood how he didn't manage to break through. Some people said it was his height and such like, but he was such a fantastic talent.
Yeah.
So it was great, playing with these guys after school at the weekend, and I don't remember, apart from those two, anyone else standing out much. When I went to boys' league, and you were playing in select teams, and you had Alan Main in goals. That well, the spine of the team was fantastic with Alan and Russell in the middle and Woody up front. You know,
solid, very solid.
But the setup in the boys' league was such. You know, we were afforded great opportunities. You didn't appreciate at the time. You know, playing against Celtic Boys Club, teams from Finland, playing in tournaments down in the air. You know, for 15-year-olds, and
huge.
we always held our heads high. You know, when we were playing these games. You know, more often than not, we won some of the games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Alec Ferguson was close to John Cameron, who was the chairman of the boys' club. He was the president and founder, really, and his son Douglas took over from him. But we ended up going on a tour as well with the boys' club, and I think we played 9 games and we were unbeaten. That was the sort of standard we had, and the type of players. We were all about 16-year-old then,
yeah,
and we were playing mainly against their under-18 teams. They didn't tend to have such young teams, so in fact we played against a team that was full of coaches, and so they were all adults, and I think we managed a 1-1 draw, which was incredible for 16-year-olds.
Yep.
So yeah, they were. So to get back to your question, yeah, nothing stood out. You know, I felt that when I was young, growing up, I was fortunate to play in quite successful teams with good players.
Yeah, yeah. Did you kind of see Russell and Gary as a challenge that made you a better player as kind of when you were younger? You maybe didn't see it at the time, but looking back now, do you think that made you a better player coming up against these guys every day, every night?
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt, Lee, that, you know, if you're playing in a good team, you can probably relate it to the highest of levels, that even the most average player can look good because they're getting time and such like. So yeah, you're fortunate if you're in a good team that you get more of the ball, etc., and your own game improves.
I think we've said it before, Ryan, that one of Alex Ferguson's beauties was he made average players good, and that was, you know, and it was by filling them around with good players around them, and it brought everyone else's level up. And you say right from the top down to the bottom, you know, if you surround not even average players, just players that are not maybe as good or developed as the other players with developed players, he's doing that, I can learn from that. And I see it at the boys' league still to this day. Like, we've got a very good rating system at the boys' league, and we've got our better players, and they're always a huge mix, so it's a very even basis for the teams. And you can see the ones that are maybe less experienced looking at the more experienced ones, and by the end they're not as good, but they're improved massively over that 3-month period you've got them, and it's all the difference.
Yeah, there is a tendency in youth football that, you know, if you've got 1 or 2 players stick out, they want the ball all the time, and the coaches say give them the ball, because there's still a winning at all cost mentality even in youth football today's day. You know, that I do remember a lot about the boys' club, and you know, one of the big thing for them was the sportsmanship. Yeah, and I think even nowadays they've got the sportsmanship trophy for the team that, you know, displays that type of behaviour while the season's going on, which is fantastic, really.
Yeah. It's always been a club. It's about giving the Bairns a game of football at the end of the day, and that's it. It's not. Yeah. There's no dramas to it. It's just getting a game of football.
It's good fun.
Aye, exactly. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so you kind of touched on it before. You put a smile on my face, and you're a Celtic fan, Liverpool fan. I'm an Aston Villa fan, but English football is not my thing. Scottish football is my thing. Yeah. Who's your biggest influences as a child in football?
As a child growing up, biggest influence would probably be through the boys' club. People like Tiger Porter.
Magic, yeah.
You know, Tiger's dedication to football in this area is unbelievable, you know, and someone I always respected and taken his views when I went on to play for Elgin City. You know, Tiger was heavily involved and used to speak to him after games and such like. The boys' club also had, you know, Harry Owens. It was a junior club. I think he was manager of
Parkhead
Thistle. Yeah, at the time, Harry was a good lad. People like Bob Jenkins, Mike Christie, you know, the volunteers that you don't appreciate at the time, what they're actually doing for you.
It's mad.
But then once you become an adult and you're involved in senior football, or even then you don't appreciate as much as once you stop and do a little bit of that yourself, the dedication and involved. So yeah, Tiger was a big influence in youth football. At the academy, I had Dennis McDonald as my manager, so I think he was a Highland League winner with Nairn County, a Highland League manager.
Helps.
So he was involved there. And then when we never had a coach at the think it was in the senior team. His wife took over, Anna.
Right,
and,
okay.
I think we managed to win the league with Anna as well, so it was quite funny. She
Runs in the blood.
She wouldn't come into the changing room, but she knew her football and she would give directions. So, you know, all the recent upsurge of females in football, we had that like 40 years ago at Elgin Academy. So
that's
quite proud of that as well.
Forward-thinking club, yeah, absolutely.
So, there's quite a few people, you know, that's the kind of youth side of things. When I went on to Bishopmore United, Jimmy Duffus and Gibby Webster took me there.
Yeah.
Graham Tatters was a player with people like Ali McCarty, Ian Angus, Mike Hendry, Alan McGregor, real senior figures, you know, that really helped you out, showed you the way. And so there's been a lot, you know, before I stepped up to Elgin City that
helped you along the way.
Yeah, and just were good with advice and encouragement, you know, didn't let your head go down if you had a bad game.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anyone you kind of watched on the telly for Scotland or Celtic or that you thought, who was your hero?
Oh, definitely Kenny Dalglish.
It's not the first Kerry answer we've had.
Kenny Dalglish and Danny McGrain, probably because I played fullback, you know, admired Danny McGrain. He'd never got in any trouble with referees. He never had a poor game.
Didn't look Scottish either, did he? Looked Italian.
I like Joe Jordan, the way he threw himself about. But Scotland were quite strong in those days. We were qualifying for tournaments, and
best midfielders in the world were Scottish. And
who will ever forget Archie Gemmell's goal?
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Never see one as good as that.
Even the team in 1978 is just, when you look at it on paper, and it's like we should be at least a semi-final with that team. You know,
I know. When when I went down to Hampden for the first time, playing against Queen's Park at Hampden, you know, I had it in my mind the whole week what I was going to do. So I had a couple of players, and one had to be Ray Clements in goals. I was going to be Kenny Dalglish for the spot where he kicked the ball through his legs. I think it was Alan Hercher went in goals, and we recreated that and running away to the empty stadium. Because we were there quite early, we were able to get out, changed and that. If anybody was watching that, I'd be thinking, what have we got here?
No, that's what it's all about, though. You've got to take these moments, you know. No, that's great. So Elgin and Inverness, Caley Thistle, Iain, can you kind of talk us through your journey from starting to Elgin and then kind of moving on through the leagues and things?
So I played for Bishopmore United, I think, for 3 years up until, I think I came on as a sub when I was 18. At one time, this when Elgin had predominantly a number of, mostly Aberdeen-based players. So, and they had quite a strong, although they never won that many trophies, they had a really strong side, you know. I was in top 3, top 4 of the Highland League, and they're obviously getting paid decent money. So I played for Bishopmore United, and I played on a Sunday for Lossy youth team. Mike Mulholland was the manager, really good manager.
Okay.
So I saw my future. Mike Teasdale was down as well at the time at Lossy, and I saw my future with Lossy rather than Elgin, to be honest, and didn't think I'd be able to break through to that sort of standard. And the Sundays were great, you know, players like Naomi Kellis, Willie Grab, Tommy Henderson would play for Lossy. They were first team players.
Yeah, big names.
So, you know, you learn a lot from them, and you know, you were playing teams like Cullen and, you know, not Highland League teams, but you play like Rothes, and so it was good. It was good competition, and we had a good side. You know, some of the boys that were sober in the first team that could be bothered to turn up. You know, you learned a bit. You had a bit of influence from them. Then Elgin had a cost cutting. It was Malcolm Cowett was the manager, so he had to really reshape the team. I think there was a lack of finances at Borough-Briggs.
Right.
So they had to go and try and get a few players signed for the start of the season. And I remember I'd played 3 games at the end of the previous season and did quite well. And then I wondered if I'd be kept on, but there was still quite a lot of Aberdeen players there. So in the summer there was a real clear out, and I think Elgin were left with like 4 or 5 players: Chris Slavin, Chico McCarty, Niamh Ronnie Dunbar. That was the kind of local players that were left. Chris was from Aberdeen. I think Neil Fivey was there, if I remember right, as well. So then it was like myself, Mike Teasdale broke through. We took through players from Inverness, Ali Jaffe, Grasser Bennett, and Davy Cran. But you know, it was kind of a surreal time for Elgin, thinking, they've gone from a consistency where we'll probably struggle in the lower half of the league with inexperience we've got. But we did okay. I think we reached a cup semi-final and finished kind of mid-table. It wasn't the standards that Elgin City had expected, but it was a foot in the right direction. We're playing, and I got an opportunity at right back and never really looked back. I managed to keep my place for the future years as well. So I'm grateful that Elgin did have a downturn in their financial situation. Within, I think, 2 years we had won the treble. With a couple of additions to the squad and a change of manager as well.
You were at Elgin for quite a period, Ian, weren't you?
Yeah, I was at Elgin for 8 seasons before I went to Inverness. In between, I went to New Zealand for 1 season to play for Malcolm Cowie, who I've mentioned, the late Malcolm.
And that's actually, am I right in thinking that's the highest league in New Zealand you were playing in?
Yeah, I was playing in the National League in New Zealand.
What kind of crowds and things are you talking?
Similar to Highland League, about 500-600. You had to fly all your games, so there was basically no away fans at any of the games. There was a place, Hamilton, it was within a couple of hours you would get a few fans trotting down, but you felt like an international superstar getting your own chartered flight, sitting in a flight, turning up rush through customs, away to the game. And then when you got to the game, it was maybe only 400 or 500 there, and you didn't feel so much like an international football star. And maybe the standard of football reflected the crowd.
Yeah. Was there a few kind of like ex-pros and that kicking about over there, or was it just mostly New Zealanders?
There was more. The club that I play for, North Shore United, they had Paul Mariner had previously played for them.
Right, okay, I've heard that name.
Paul Mariner, he played for England and switched down.
I know, I definitely heard the name.
Might be early 80s, the late 70s, early 80s. And John McGinley, who played with Elgin City. John had played for the same club as well. In fact, it was his brother who had gone, Dave, he had gone over there and came back and had done really well. And Dave suggested, I said, I'm looking for a change, and that sounds really good. And I actually went and stayed with the family that Dave had been with.
Magic.
So it was just a fantastic footballing family, and just a great experience to be in a different country. And it was a decent standard. It was probably top of the Highland League standard. Maybe not as good as the Scottish League, but I think in the team that I played with, 3 of the players ended up going on to get into quite a number of caps with the New Zealand national team.
That's exactly. And John McGinley getting caps for Scotland himself.
Incredible,
unbelievable. Then kind of Pele signed you for Caley after Elgin. I can't remember the name. You were signed at the same time as someone else. I can't remember.
Ian Stewart, I think about.
Ian Stewart, and there was another name. Mark someone. No, maybe got that wrong. I can't.
Okay. That was.
Was that because obviously Pele's moved from Elgin, and then I think there was a little bit of time in between Elgin and Caley with him, isn't there?
Yeah, Pele went to Huntly. It was very successful at Huntly. Elgin City. That was really quite folly that they managed to let him go. We could have had that team that won the treble for a number of seasons, and
you could have been the 5 in a row team.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we had a good enough side to do that. But such is life. Things change quickly in football. We bounced back again. Mike Winton took over and won a cup under Mike. A couple of years later, we had John Teasdale, and we won the league with John. So we went on to have good teams, but having experienced a change in New Zealand, when Steve came looking for me, it wasn't automatic I was going to go, because I was quite reluctant. I love playing for Elgin. They probably knew most of the fans that watched the games. I'd won all the trophies with Elgin. I enjoyed the success, the nights out, and just being in the social club after the game. So I knew it was going to be a big culture shock for me to go to club. But when Pele got me down to his house and told me the players he was signing, it was like a Highland League select. The move into a new stadium as such. Caley were our big rivals in the Highland League. It was a new venture. I looked upon it was like an Inverness United kind of team rather than Caley itself. Although predominantly most of the players that were left were Caley players. Yeah,
strong team. As you say, you mentioned Ian Stewart there. He's rose up the divisions quite quickly.
We did, I do remember the first. I signed from Elgin and just about 3 or 4 games before the end of the season, I snapped my cartilage in my right knee.
Right.
And I was told by the surgeons that it would be okay, close season. I had a medical at Inverness, but when I came back to try and train, I couldn't run at all. So, that was nervous times thinking, God, is this long term? I'd seen players in the Elgin City team with knee injuries and how long that. So we had lost, I think, 3 out of the first 4 games. And I remember a game back from Forfar, so I used to travel in the car with Pele. He lived in Fochabers and I was in Elgin, of course. So stopping in a pub in Keith, and I'm saying, Pele saying, maybe this is just too big a job for me. I should have stuck in the Highland League. It was like, it's early days. You've got quite a few players on the sidelines, players to come in. And that season, the first season, we managed to stabilise ourselves in the Scottish League. I think we ended up being about 4th in the league, and we had a good cup run to the quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup. We played Rangers at Tannadice, and we ended up. I think that was the first season, and then the second season, we won the league comfortably by 10 points. And that season quite memorable. We beat Ross County 4 times in the season, twice at home, twice away, and that was in front of crowds of 6,000 each time. So, good times, good sides in the Scottish League. That's it's a big physical challenge playing in the Scottish League, and every game's like a cup final. I mean, I'd played Scottish Cup games with Elgin City, and you had to raise your game in those. But like Elgin City have got now, you have to raise your game for 36 games.
Yes,
you can't relax for any. The teams at the bottom can beat the leaders of the league quite easily.
No bother at all. So one of the questions I got asked, I'm only going to touch on it a little bit tonight, because I'm actually thinking about doing an episode with maybe a few years talking about 92, 93 and just kind of your own experience. But one of the questions I got asked, and it was actually from Mo Morrison, Elgin's women's manager.
Oh yeah, I know Mo,
He'd asked, and I'm going to ask a few years, did you hand back your league winners medal?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How is that, having to hand back a winner's medal when you've quite clearly won it?
Yeah, well, I think the majority of the players handed them back. I think the club got threatened in a letter from the Highland League that they would be fined £500 for each medal that wasn't returned. So, that was 1992. It's a lot of money for the club to pay out. I mean, it's a token medal. What the league couldn't do was take the night out we had away from us. In their minds, we had won the league. It was a total witch hunt against John Teasdale.
Yeah.
It was, and I've spoke to people that were even at the committee meeting that night and said the wrong decision was made. I think, it became a bit of embarrassment for the Highland League.
Yes,
rather than for Elgin City.
When you look back in the situation, it's the Highland League that are not looked on fondly in this situation. It's nothing to do with Elgin not being looked on fondly. There's not a lot of people who won't argue Elgin's case in this case. As I say, well, we will touch back on this because there's hours worth of stuff to go into. Even if you pick apart that season alone, we spoke briefly with Russell about the game at Keith, where we're playing with 8 players on the pitch, and there's multiple incidents over that season that kind of build up, and you can see why there was a witch hunt, and it's like
I mean, John. With John. I mean, John was a fantastic player. In hindsight, he might have done things differently, not wound up so many people. But, John was a big fish in a small pool. He'd played for Wolves, he played for Rod Stewart's team in LA. It's like anyone that does well for themselves, they're there to be brought back down to earth. That's the kind of mentality of this country, isn't it?
It's sad.
In the UK, you don't find that in America or other countries.
You don't.
It was definitely a witch hunt, because they didn't even go about it the right way. The committee members or the representative of their clubs turned up at a meeting at Borough Briggs. Then they made the decision that night, rather than go back to their own clubs to get their committee's decision.
Yeah.
So, they didn't go about it the correct way in terms of the rules. I think the SFA ended up writing to the Highland League, criticising them from a decision they had made, but said, they couldn't go back on it now because it was water under the bridge, so to speak. Elgin City did involve a lawyer at one point, but I think it was going to cost 20 grand to take the Highland League to court. There's no doubt that Elgin City would have won.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Rules have been broken like that. In fact, no rule was broken. It was the Highland League that who were poorly
They
represented at the time.
Yeah, they chose a technicality. It's not really even a technicality. So it's
and if you take away the 3 points from the game, we still win the league.
That's what I said with Russell. Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, it just became a bit of an embarrassment. The Highland League, that the league for that season was void. And I got to play with quite a lot of the top Highland League players with Inverness, and they used to take the mickey out of me, but they would say it was an absolute disgrace what happened.
Yeah. As you say, league-wide kind of agreed.
I mean, I felt sorry, Lee, because there was a lot of players on the John Teasdale side who hadn't won the league before. Well, I can say I was fortunate enough when some of the other players that we had won it in under Pele Paterson. Mm-hmm. So that you could see how much it hurt them. Yeah. Well, it hurt us all, Mm-hmm. But especially as they hadn't ever had a league winners' medal.
It's the best teams deserve to win the league. Yeah. You play the best football, you score the most goals, you deserve to win.
I think we scored 104 goals, if I remember right from that season.
I've actually got your stats for that league. For that, 110.
110 goals. That's incredible for 34 league games, I think it was in those days.
And conceded 35. So it's one a game.
Yeah. And that's when the league was really strong, with
good Lossy,
Range, Caley,
Inverness,
Thistle, Ross County, Bobby Wilson's Ross County were in the league. It was a fantastic achievement because I don't think we started off our league campaign that well. I think we just picked up over the months, and we were really fit. Graham Tatters gave us like military training. It was no surprise that in the last 20 minutes of games we used to turn over sides.
Yes,
because we were quite a big, strong side, and
physically prepared for it.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So my next two questions, the first, I was going to ask them anyway, but somebody's also asked, and it's Martin Stewart from
Huntly,
Huntly, who's actually going to be coming in on the podcast in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, fantastic player, Martin.
So I'll ask his question first, but it's also my question is, who's the best player you played against during your days in the Highland League?
Okay, in the Highland League, probably definitely Wilson Robertson of Caley. That being the big games, we had 1,000 plus at games, whether in Inverness or Elgin City. And the games were always meaningful, but I remember watching Elgin City, and Wilson used to play up against Ronnie Brown and sometimes give Ronnie a torrid time. So when I got the opportunity, I used to try and show him down the line because I was quite pacey, good matches, but he used to cut in a lot as well. So he was a real tricky player. Unfortunately, I never got a chance when I went to Caley to play with Wilson, because he then, I think, went back into the Highland League with Bucky Thistle, if I remember right.
Yeah, Craig had him in his 11 as well, and mentioned that he played for Bucky. Did you come across Martin Lyle at your time in Inverness?
Martin, I played with him at Caley Thistle as well. Martin was
because he's had quite a few mentions of the hardest player he played against, and Martin Lyle comes up quite a lot.
Martin played in midfield, and he was coming to end his career with Caley, and I think he ended up going to Elgin City for a season. Okay, but a great guy, good professional to have around the club. Even though he wasn't playing regular for Steve Paterson's Inverness, he was always encouraging and getting behind you when things weren't going so well. But he was I remember watching him as well and playing against him, and he was just a total powerhouse in midfield, up and down for 90 minutes.
Fantastic.
Caley did have a lot of good players, and Peter Corbett was the manager. Mm-hmm. So Peter was a fantastic player himself, but I used to rib Charlie Christie about the amount of times they had won the league wasn't that many in my time at Elgin, and because they had such a good squad of players, players like Alan Hercher and Billy Uckert, the Martin Lyles and
Les Fridge.
Les, I think he was at Inverness. Les had played professional. I think he went to Chelsea and he'd beaten a few. Les signed for Inverness, I think, in my third season there. Yeah. So he was a good signing, good goalkeeper, Les. And I think he went on to be a Highland League manager as well.
It was always, obviously, I was a kid, but it was always a memorable name, Les Fridge, and I always remember.
Yeah, I remember his brother Mike as well. He was a coach at Caley Thistle.
Ah, right, okay, I never realised that. Les Fridge, and as a name, pops up quite a lot in these Highland League groups and things like that. Best player you played with?
That's pretty tough because I've played with a lot of good players.
You can give me a couple if you want, if that's easier, Ian.
Probably the best player who did the best for himself was John McGinley. John came up from, I think it was Yeovil Town. He never started well. I remember he hadn't scored for like the first 6 games, and I thought, God, I can't believe we paid his travelling expenses and his removal costs to come to Elgin, and then he just set the hell on fire. He scored like 30 goals in as many games, and then he got quite quickly snapped up by Shrewsbury Town, I think it was, and then he was a legend at Bolton, and went on to play for Scotland and that. And
one of the things I brought up with Russell is I didn't realise him and Duncan Shearer played in the same Fort William team as each other. That's an unbelievable front line for Fort William.
I think they're both from
Nairn.
Cowell, I think it's pronounced down in Fort William.
I know the
So because I played with Duncan in the end of his career and kind of end of mine at Inverness. As well. Really nice bloke, and used to talk about him and John playing for the school team and such like. So what a forward line.
It's crazy.
I think
they
both played for Scotland together as well. I think they played a game in, can't remember if it's Iceland or somewhere like that, but I think one went on for the other, or so they actually were in Scotland squads together.
That's crazy. Two lads. I've got basically the same upbringing through the leagues and things like that. I've listened to a few podcasts with John, and he reckons that his time at Fort William, Nairn and Elgin made him the player he was. Says when you're a 16, 17-year-old getting battered about by big hard defenders, it teaches you a thing or two,
I also played with Barry Robson, who went obviously on to play for Celtic in Scotland, and Ross Tokley was another good player in Grant Munro. They were just breaking through Inverness when I left.
Did you play with Richard Hastings?
Yeah, Richard was part of the back four that I was in. Good player, went on to be a Canadian international and numerous caps, and now managing the Highland League. Again, there was one thing about Steve Paterson. He wouldn't just sign good players. You had to be the right type of person to fit into a team.
It's huge.
He just felt that morale was all good results was down to a good morale, and you had to have the right types in your team.
Yeah, I agree.
And I saw that. Steve was my manager for most of my career, so that was great being not just part of good footballing teams, but great being part of teams that knew how to win and lose together as well, and
mentality goes along with it.
Good attitude. That. Steve's attitude was, we're here at training, we'll just play football, we work on your poor side, or if you want to be fit, do that in your own time. If you're not fit, you won't play for my team.
Yeah.
That was him. There was no...
I quite like that.
No complex tactics. You're at a high level now. If you're not fit, you get yourself fit in your own time. I'm not wasting my nights at training, or when it became full-time days at training, working on throw-ins or anything like that. I'm wanting to just play football and improve as a team. Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned full time there. Did you play full time, Ian?
No, I got offered a 2-year contract when we went up from the third to the second division. So I'd been into the third year of my 4-year contract, and I was offered a 2-year deal, and because I had quite a steady job, and I had problems with my knee on and off. I think I'd played about 40 out of the 42 games the season before. It wasn't really. Wouldn't have been the best decision for me to make to go full time. Yeah, it was. It would have been an absolute luxury getting up for 9 to 5 each day. But no, I think I made the right decision in staying. I was fortunate enough we went to second division. I was the captain of the club, so there was only myself and Paul Cherry who remained part time. In fact, the club signed me for an additional year on my contract, but injury was to get the better of me in the end.
Well, I've got your stats here. You played 98 games for college. Do you know how many clean sheets you kept?
Oh, no.
28 clean sheets, so 1 in 3.
Okay, yeah.
Decent record.
Not bad at that level, I suppose.
That's pretty good, yeah. A lot of, especially as you are going through the divisions and adjusting, because people forget Caley just moved out the Highland League at this point, and there was no such thing as Inverness Caley Thistle before this.
That's right, yeah.
Can I ask you how close you got to playing Super Caley Go Ballistic? Were you close to that squad?
Not really, because the last year my contract, I was injured. I got injured, I think, in year 4 of my it was then a 5-year contract, so I terminated the contract early.
Okay.
It'd always been my intention to go back and play in the Highland League and Elgin City. So I did think at one point, I would make it back, but I had a meeting with the chairman and such like, and it was clear, that I had another scan on my ankle at that point, and had advice that it was going to affect me for basic things like walking in the future if I continued to play. So just wear and tear a defender in their 30s, I suppose. So that was a bit of disappointment not to be able to come back to Highland League, because I had a lot of experience that I could have passed on.
Absolutely.
But I wasn't close to that. Most of the players in the team were in the squad when I was there, so they did do really well. That's not just that night against Celtic, but to get promoted into the first division,
absolutely,
as well,
absolutely,
and then quite quickly the Premier League.
I've always kind of found it surreal that that team, a core of that team was playing Highland League a few seasons before, and then it went on to do what it done against Celtic.
I mean, Steve had quite a lot of negative publicity in the first year when he was snapping up, because he paid good money for myself, Ian Stewart, Brian Thompson came from Huntly, and a lot of people were critical, saying players from the Highlands won't win you the third division. Within 2 years we won it by 10 points.
Exactly.
And Steve always had this affiliation, being a Highlander himself, that he was quite proud of the fact his team were all from North. I think it was only Paul Cherry, who was from Perth.
It's not even that far.
He was out with the squad. Yeah.
No, it's I wish Elgin. I think they're starting to do it more now with Alan and Stefan at the helm. But for a few seasons ago, a lot of our were central based players, and it just didn't seem to gel much. And
no, I mean, Elgin's, they've had it hard, because it's difficult to get Highland League players now. You've got to pay good money for them. Clubs aren't just going to let the players go. It's maybe a bit different now because players are out of contract, under the Bosman ruling. But, that Bucky Thistle probably have that now when they go for a player. They've got a bit of money from the Celtic game. Yeah. And the players will just be way overpriced, and they'll find they probably can't improve what they've got, or they have to pay top dollar for it.
No, that's it. But they can pay signing on fees as well and things like that.
Yeah, I think, for Elgin City over the years, I've been down over the years to watch the games, and it's a different team every time you go. It's like lone players. Yeah. And, I don't understand why they just don't take a chance and, get some of these players from the youth squads up and work away with them, like they did in my day with Elgin City. They couldn't do much worse, to be honest, Lee, than what they had done in the last few seasons. Although now you can get relegated, so they probably are fearful of that.
Fully on board with that. Fully on board. Okay, so we talked a wee bit about Pele, so I'm just going to kind of go on to my next one. Who's your favourite football player ever? Who's
ever? Yeah.
The way I try and ask that question is there any kind of game you would sit down and watch for just so-and-so's playing in that game? I'll watch that. Like Ryan's was Ronaldinho. If Ronaldinho was playing in a game, you'd watch it. Is there anyone that you thought that's just entertainment for me?
Yeah, I mean, there are obvious ones that are here, Messi's and Ronaldo's, aren't they? And Diego Maradona. And, as I said, boyhood hero was Kenny Dalglish. Always enjoy watching the games, the way he managed to shield the ball from players. Just fantastic. But being a fullback, probably Cafu of Brazil stood out for me. I thought he was world class.
He was.
Really was. The way that he used to pound up and down the wings, it was just great watching. It would have to be a Brazilian, wouldn't it? The Zico or these players.
Even maybe not so much what he's been doing recently, but your Brazilian right back's always been great. Maicon, you've got Dani Alves, back to Carlos Alberto back in the 70s. They've always produced that kind of. But Cafu, I think there's a stat somewhere where Cafu, I think, is only guy to play 3 World Cup finals in a row. Right, so he played 94, 98 and 2002. And that's
brilliant player, because there was Roberto Carlos on the left and him on the right, and they didn't have to do much defending with the teams they were in. But they hit the eye, definitely. They caught the eye.
You're right with that fact, by the way, about the 3 in a row. I just looked up, 94, 98 and 2002.
and I don't think there's been another right back ever to reach his level. I can't think of anyone that's kind of comes close to longevity, popularity, and also just doing it at a world-class level like Cafu. Great answer.
There's Beckenbauer and Pele was a bit before my time, but they stand out as well. Obviously, Pele probably is the best player that's ever played.
Yeah,
because if you think the treatment that he would have got in those days, there was no protection for ball players.
No. If anything, it was the opposite. They tried to take them out because it's like, well, if I don't kick him, he's just going to put it through my legs and go past me, and can't get away with that now. But okay, how do you think you would get on in today's game, Iain, if you were a modern day right back?
Probably be sitting in a few suspensions, I would imagine. It's almost became like a non-contact sport.
Did you pick up much bookings in your career?
Yes, probably average for defender.
Sending offs?
I think it was sent off 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
So over a period of 12, 13 years wasn't too bad.
It's great for a defender.
And there were double yellow cards. I don't think I had a straight red. I don't think. I think it was the double yellows that I had. But
would you have argued with refs and things like that? Or were you
from a distance.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, through my voice. Yeah, everyone does.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah, the referees were probably a bit more tolerable in those days. You got to know that as you got experienced in the league, you got to know the referees. Bill Macrae, I remember Kevin Bissett. You would meet them in the social club after a game when you're having a pint and have a chat. There was 1 or 2 that you did feel that didn't like Elgin City, and but that was those days. But no, I don't think I was booked for dissent, or if I was, it wasn't very often. That would have been a waste of booking when you could be clattering into somebody.
Exactly. That's what a brilliant way of putting it. I'm not going to waste on that. I'll waste it on this one. Best performance of your career?
Best performance.
Is there a game that sticks out that you thought?
Probably, in fact, the biggest game I played in the quarterfinals, the Scottish Cup against Rangers. We got beat 3-0 in that game, but we have a really good account ourselves. We made quite a few chances, and we played quite well. Jim Calder, our keeper, he was named man of the match it was journalists that picked the man of the match that day, and he was first, and Gaza was second, Paul Gascoigne, and I was third.
Wow.
So Jim obviously got a trophy. He was outstanding that day. But I was quite pleased that I managed to come through that game. That was the Rangers 9 in a row team. They won 9 in a row that season. So
who was you up against that day?
I actually dropped back to like a sweeper position then, and Laudrup was, I've marked him quite a few times during the game, and just his turn of pace was incredible. And McCoist was up front as well, and McCoist was desperate to do well because it was the Euros.
Okay.
And he was keen to go to them. So I think he came back from an injury, was keen to prove himself. So I don't think he scored. I think Gaza got 2 goals that day. But there was another game as well that I scored. I didn't score very often, but I managed to score 2 in a game through at Cove Rangers, 1 from my own half. It was a clearance, but it didn't say that in the press the next day. Just said like a 55-yard shot.
Better than Neefy's one.
No, nothing's better than Neefy's one. That win that day did put us to the top of the league, so I was quite pleased myself because I wasn't used to being a goal scorer. And I think we had won the game 2-1, so that was quite good through in Cove's patch because we had a big rivalry with Cove Rangers when they came into the league. Same with Inverness, with Livingston when we came into the league at the same time as them. So it was you enjoyed the victories a bit more.
You do. Fantastic. Which would have been your favourite moment in football?
Favourite moment would probably be lifting the league with Elgin City for the first time. I think it was the first time in about 16 years that they had won league. So I grew up watching Elgin City, but I'd never seen them winning the league.
Yeah.
So to win it and be part of the team playing, that's probably my favourite moment, yeah. And I had a couple of individual honours where I won Players Player of the Year a couple of times with Elgin City. And
brilliant.
The year I was with Inverness, I won the Players Player of the Year then. And, ask any player, Lee, and that's the biggest honour you can get from your fellow players.
Absolutely.
if you get that. So, on a personal basis, it was that, but definitely on a team basis, lifting the league with Elgin City for the first time was incredible.
Oh, cracking.
Yeah.
And finally, to kind of round off my questions before we just chat a wee bit more, is what's been your proudest achievement in football?
Achievement, probably winning the treble that season with Elgin City. It was pretty unique for a team to do that in the Highland League because it was so good and it was so competitive, and the players on the other sides, the opponents.
You actually got a fourth cup as well,
class.
didn't you?
Yeah, we missed out. I think I think the first one of the season's the Tenants Cup. So we had a change of manager, and then we won the cup with Mike Winton as the manager the next season. So we've got photos with the 4 trophies, which is even more unique.
It is.
So yeah, that success, I think I was 22 at the time. So, we had all the medals and all the trophies at the age of 22. It was quite incredible, but you just think that'll last forever.
You do, yeah.
You don't look much further than a week later, and things change in football so quickly, and you don't appreciate at the time what the club's actually achieved. But just when I think back, when I remember the joy on, because it's not just it's supporters that you're seeing. It's people from the town.
It is.
It's all the fans, the sponsors. They're all individuals that you actually know, and you become friends with a lot of them as well, and meeting them in the club after the game.
No, it's a family club. Always has been a family club, and to this day it's a family club. It's the same faces you see every week, and it's the same faces you were seeing 15 years ago. And it's
they've got such. Now they're in the Scottish League. It costs so much money to go and follow the club,
it does.
And even the home games. And it's the same die-hard fans that I see in the terraces that were there in my day. If I'm walking in the Cooper Park, wish people would just stop saying that, you could still put your boots on and play. Because I struggle to put my boots on and walk. And that's walking boots.
I offered Frazy Kellis a game for my adult squad a couple of weeks ago. He says, I can't find my boots. So I was like, okay, it's all right. At least he finds you a pair.
My son calls it the olden days when I played. So, yeah.
It's not that old. It's not that old. Okay, so I suppose there's a little foray into... would you like to speak about Jack? Because Jack's actually played in the Highland League himself. And
Jack, he came through the youth teams with some of the same coaches like Tiger Porter that mentioned.
Do you find that a little bit surreal that kind of Tiger coached yourself and coached Jack as well? Yeah,
it is. It just shows the commitment, and it's incredible. I remember him and Ian Campbell used to drive down to Glasgow on a Sunday and take all the youths away down there, and then train 3 nights a week, and then away again the following Sunday. Some of the home games were played in Perth.
Yeah,
it's just incredible, the commitment that these volunteers and coaches have had. And a lot of them are ex-players as well, so they're quite well respected by the players. Unfortunately, Elgin City's at a standard now where there's not many youth players do break through to the first team. But like Sir Brian Cameron, and he's just an incredible player for Elgin City.
Just time's no object for that.
No, I remember when I used to go down with his dad and watch him playing for youths, and quite often he'd be on the bench the whole game and not even get on.
Yeah.
So he's fair play to Brian. He's stuck at it, and his dad probably made him, and he's become an absolute superstar for the club.
I think Brian's attitude's got him to where he is as well.
Yeah, he could definitely be playing at a higher level.
Yeah.
We talk about players. I mentioned Woody earlier on. Russell Mackay. Russell had a bad knee injury in his mid-20s. There's no doubt Russell could have been playing at a much higher level than I played at. He wouldn't have looked outplaced in the Premier League. Even the likes of Chico McCarty would have slotted into the Aberdeen side. I've played with a lot of players that could have been playing at a higher level, but seemed to get overlooked for some reason.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Okay, I mentioned it earlier on. We're going to do a wee quiz. I says to Ryan I'd kind of thrown him under the bus a little bit because we're going to go mid-90s with a quiz. So the game is going to be 15th of June 1996. How old were you been, Ryan?
Minus 1 month old. By the way, do you want me to play the intro before?
Please play the intro.
It's time for producer versus the player.
Okay.
So it's Scotland versus England, Euro 96.
Okay.
All right, okay.
I will let Ian go first, and that can be, there's 3 subs used from each team, so there's 28 names to choose from altogether. Any of the 28.
Colin Hendry.
Colin Hendry.
Gascoigne, because that would have been the hairdryer game. Or
Gascoigne.
dentist chair, sorry.
It was, yes.
Collins. John Collins.
John Collins, fantastic player.
Alan Shearer.
Alan Shearer.
Calderwood.
Colin Calderwood.
Tim Sherwood.
Oh, Ryan's done it. It's over. It's over. Nah,
You let everyone keep going first, man. I'm starting to think this is rigged.
Sorry.
No, I'm joking.
I would have said Sherwood, personally. I'll go through the teams quickly.
It's just when I heard Colin Hendry, I thought,
McManaman was going to be my next one.
McManaman was in,
McManaman,
yeah. So we've got Gorham, McKimmie, Boyd, Calderwood, Hendry, McKinley, Spencer, I can't read one right, and Stuart McCall, Gordon Judy, Gary McAllister, John Collins, Alan McCoy, Craig Barley, and Ian Jess from Aberdeen.
Oh, yeah.
England, Dave Seaman, Gary Neville, Stuart Pearce, Paul Ince at centre-back, Tony Adams, Gareth Southgate, McManaman, Gascoigne, Shearer, Sheringham, Anderton, and off the bench was Redknapp, Sol Campbell, and Steve Stone.
Right. I think Ince would have been midfield. It would have been Southgate centre half.
5-3-2 they played.
Oh, right. Really?
So they played Pearce left back.
Yeah.
Actually played Neville, Ince. Neville, Ince, and Adams in the 3 centre backs, and they played Southgate out left. But Terry Venables, I'm pretty sure it was him who was in charge, played against Germany in the semi-final and didn't use a sub over 120 minutes.
All right, okay.
Didn't use a single sub, so he was a bit of a strange manager, Terry.
Yeah. That was the Southgate penalty miss, wasn't it? That
it was, yeah.
concluded that for England.
I was that. Yeah, I did have that in my mind, but I thought that might have been Italia 90, or maybe both. They went out of
Possibly
penalties
both.
a few times.
That was usual for England in the 90s. So I'm going to go through your 1-11. I'm going to read through it, Ian.
Yeah.
Fantastic 1-11, by the way. Thank you
really
very
difficult
much.
to pick out.
I had to do it for
Best
Ryan
players.
myself. Like I'm not an ex-player. I'm barely even a coach these days, and I had to give Ryan my 11 of favourite players, and it took me hours.
Yeah.
Took me absolute hours to do it. I'm like, there's so many people. So in goals got Jim Calder, a back four of Mike Teasdale, Chico McCarty, Graham Soapy Cameron, and Neith McLennan. In the middle, you've got Barry Robson, Charlie Christie, and Russell Mackay. And your front three is John Teasdale, Ian Stewart, and John McGinley.
Yeah.
So Jim Calder, go do my research, played until he was 46. And until he was 26, he was a striker.
Yeah. He always comes out with that story.
How does that happen?
Yeah, he was at Inverness Thistle for years, and he was one of the players that was at Inverness from Thistle. I think it was only a couple that managed to go with the transition because Caley were such a strong side when Sergi Baltacha took over the team. So Steve kept him. Jim wasn't the first choice. I think it was Mark McRitchie first of all, but he stuck in and he got his opportunity when it came. He just became a total fan's favourite. Yeah, a better shot stopper I've never seen. Jim wasn't 6 foot. He wasn't a tall goalkeeper, but his reflexes and his bravery were incredible. And he was he never stopped shouting. He was just mowing the whole 90 minutes.
It's a good goalkeeper for you.
Yeah, and we had a good back four when we played with Mike Noble in the centre half with myself in the middle, Mike Teasdale right, and Richard Hastings left, and then sometimes Grasser would play sweeper, and I would be playing right back as well. So we were quite proud of our defensive record at Inverness, and Jim was outstanding in goals.
A solid back line. So we've got 4. Mike Teasdale, I'm pretty sure Russell played him at right mid. You play him at right back.
Mike's played in front of me for most of his career. He went to Dundee and for a season or two there, and then he came back to Inverness. But the years that he played for Elgin City, he used to just glide past players in midfield. He was so good. He was like untouchable, you know, and he was strong. So even if he got fouled, he wouldn't go down. And he scored a lot of goals for Elgin City, and you know, we were quite strong on the right side. In that team. And latterly played for, I think he played right back for Caley against Celtic, if I remember right.
He did, yeah. And, I tried to look up the wee bit about the team.
And Michael was one of these players that would just play wherever he was told to play.
Yeah.
You know, and give you 100%, you know. And again, he had a great engine on him up and down for the 90 minutes. But good player.
I think somebody that's obviously you know very well, quite close to you, is Graham Soapy Cameron. And you want to give him a wee mention?
Yeah, I didn't know him before I went to New Zealand. He came back as I went out there, and he had played in a successful Forest team before, but then John Teasdale signed him for Elgin City, and you know, you could tell, I mean, he played normally in midfield as well, and he used to score good return of goals, had a really successful career in New Zealand and ended up representing the country. He got residency and played a couple of times for them in front of big crowds. So yeah, he was a hard player. And I think there's a bit of theme to my team. It's quite a strong physical team and an attacking team. So yeah, he's been a good friend over the years, and you know, was a great player in his time. Again, like Russell, he suffered from a knee injury, and you know, he lost a few years at the back end of his career, but nevertheless did really well, and again won, you know, a lot of trophies.
Yeah. Do you see similarities with his son?
Brian, yeah. So he was probably a more physical player than Brian, whereas, you know, Brian's plays in a different position. He's more probably skillful than his dad. Yeah. And
a wee bit more technical.
Bit better vision. And I mean, there's no doubt that Brian could have gone on to play at a higher level, but so could his dad as well. Yeah. Fantastic.
Okay, I'm going to go kind of just move us into the midfield. I would pick out every player, but we could be here for the next 3 years if you want, Ian. That's not an issue. But if you want to come back, no worries. Charlie Christie played for Celtic.
Yeah, outstanding Highland League. I remember going down and watching Charlie ripping Elgin City teams apart. I mean, he was in late teens, early 20s then. You know, you can tell real player at training. You know, they come and take the ball off you and they go past 3 or 4 players. And, you know, Charlie was that type of player. You know, his son plays for Scotland now, Ryan, so he's done really well for himself. But Charlie himself was such a skillful player, and he could finish also. But I do remember games, I think I'd won a man of the match one game, and he came in fuming. He had an outstanding game himself. And he says, what do I have to do when I man the match? He said, I beat 3 players, and I play a pass through to the striker just a yard behind them, and I more or less get booed by the fans. You win a tackle, you'll lump it into the stand, and you get a standing ovation. So I said, okay, you'll be dropping back to defence shortly yourself, Charlie. But yeah, absolutely outstanding, good character as well.
Yeah, and huge Inverness over that.
Yeah, he's Mr. Inverness. He's still involved with Caley Thistle with the club, and has been all his life. He didn't quite make it at Celtic. I think he was a bit homesick, but there's no doubt he should have been playing at a much higher level. When we were in the 3rd division, you know, Charlie, it's a really strong league and players are on top of you right away, but the higher divisions were up, you notice Charlie's class more. Yeah. You get a bit more time on the ball, and you know, a real player with vision and skill.
Barry Robson, so it's mad to think, like, he's scored against Barcelona in the Champions League. And I take it he was a young guy when you.
Yeah, he just came into the club in my last couple of seasons there, and I remember Barry, I think he'd had a rejection from Rangers. He'd been down there, and you know, he'd got loaned out to Forfar as well. He didn't quite break into our team, but you know, he kept his head down, worked hard, and look at the career he's had. Absolutely. You know, and I thought he was hard done by, you know, in the Aberdeen position.
So yeah.
You know, he'd been outstanding the season before, and you know, the fans of the big clubs, they just want instant success, but they've actually gone backwards since he's left.
And people forget that he came into a Celtic team and took over free kick duty from Nakamura. You know? So the first couple of games,
The
he
ball,
was
fantastic,
fantastic dead ball. That's the thing I always
left
remember.
peg. I mean, Barry was all left-footed.
Yeah,
When I remember him from the earlier days, but he went on to use his right a lot more.
he did.
As
Yeah,
well, but the quality of crosses, corners coming in,
I think Barry had
incredible.
maybe about 20 odd games for Scotland as well. So
Yeah.
big career. You know.
He wasn't particularly fast, Barry, but he was just so good on the ball.
Yeah.
He never wasted a pass.
I think Strachan took him down to Middlesbrough with him.
Yeah,
as well.
he went to Canada. I think he played over there for a while.
Barry reminds me of just your typical Scottish player. He looks Scottish, he's ginger hair, just looks a wee bit rough, but fantastic player. He doesn't look that technically good, and then when he gets on the ball, really surprises you.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Sheeran played in the team, one of the teams that I was playing in, and I think it was the second division. And again, we were fortunate with Barry and Paul Sheeran, both left-sided players, and Paul went on to play for Aberdeen as well. You don't get that many naturally left-footed players playing at the lower levels, so
You don't.
it was great that they both forged a career for themselves.
Yeah,
And good guys as well.
absolutely. Okay, we've had quite a good chat about this man, but here's a man who's actually played with him instead of playing against him, because we know he's a nightmare to play against. Ian Stewart.
Yeah, I mean, Stuart, he never used to wander over to my side, really. He was right through the middle, he was a penalty box player. He did used to link up in the midfield and that, but, I never got that many tussles with him myself, but he was outstanding, and Elgin Lossy were big games in those days. He slipped through the net with Steve Paterson. He had him on trial after he left Dundee, and he played Steve didn't fancy him after seeing him in a midweek game, and that was a big mistake.
Yeah, huge.
But he managed to recoup him for Inverness, and he paid them back with the amount of goals he scored.
22 games, 82 goals.
Wow.
So it's a huge return, especially when you're new into that league system and trying to go through the leagues. That kind of returns.
He's just a natural goal scorer. I mean, you can't teach that. It's just an ability that came natural to Stewarty.
Talking about natural goal scorers, John McGinley.
Yeah, I mean, touched on John earlier, Lee. I mean, as I say, the fantastic pace and goal scoring ability, and it was pretty obvious to us early on that we weren't going to be able to hang on to him.
Just one of the things I think Russell mentioned is the leap that you had on him. Just like
for headers. Yeah, I think that improved a lot as well when he went full time with first of all Shrewsbury, and then quite quickly Bolton, and I think he played alongside Andy Walker, and Bruce Rioch was the manager in those days. They had some great FA Cup. I remember watching on TV the games against Arsenal, and I think he scored at Anfield with a header.
Yeah,
I think I remember that. And I know Dave well, his brother. He played with me at Inverness and Elgin City, and John obviously played in the same team as I. Sorry, he played for the club, not at a different time in New Zealand as well. So
yeah. We'll round off here 11 with John Teasdale. How was he as a player?
Just different class.
Yeah.
I mean, I said earlier about John McGinley being the best player, but John Teasdale's in a power with him, to be honest. I mean, talked about Barry striking a ball. There's nobody striking a ball better than John Teasdale. John was back playing the Highland League, I think, at 26 years old. He had kind of fallen away in the professional game, and he could have, there's no doubt that he could have still been playing there. As I say, when you see players at training, you realise how good they are. John tried to mix the football with the management as well, which, it's a difficult. Steve Paterson tried to do that as well at Elgin and Huntly, I think, when he first went in. And, I would have had Steve in my first 11 as well, but he didn't play so many games with me at Elgin City the year we won the league, because I think it was at the latter end of his career, but you could tell when Steve and John were playing the same team, it was like, wow.
Could you just tell in training and things like that? It was Steve,
even the games, the first touch and the vision they had. The other players weren't on the same wavelength as him. I mean, John Teasdale was fast, in his day, and he had lost a wee bit of that, but just the guile and the cleverness of their play, and the finishing from John Teasdale was still
second.
And Steve Paterson, when he played centre midfield, nobody could get near him or get the ball off him.
It's and you look at that whole kind of Elgin team around, but the majority of these guys either played professionally or at least semi-professionally. A lot of these guys ended up on schoolboys for Scotland or S forms somewhere, or and to bring all these players together and get them playing and winning 4 trophies, it's something special.
Yeah, the only disappointment is we didn't manage to keep that treble-winning team at Elgin City. We had Billy Ferris, a great winger from Ross County. He only had the 1 season with us. I mean, players come and go, as you know, but it was when Steve Paterson left for Huntly. Then the Elgin City definitely missed a trick with that one. We could have had a bit more stability, and he would have strengthened the team, whereas it was weakened until John Teasdale came, and we won that league again in 92, 93.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the last hour and a bit. Really appreciate it.
Privilege coming on. Thanks for inviting me.
No, honestly, the pleasure's all mine. I've actually started saying this last episode. I think the first one I said it, but I'm now going to open it to you. I'm thinking about doing a charity game at some point in the next maybe year or so, and getting all these kind of ex-Elgin players and a collection of players. If it was something you were interested in,
I would definitely come down and watch, but I don't think the body would allow me to even run.
Be up against Frazee Callis.
Good Mark Frazee.
Amazing, Mark Frazee. No, I appreciate it. Thank you to people for listening to this episode. I'm still looking for my first sponsor, if anyone wants to get in touch. But even just following me, giving me the rating, that helps more than anything. I prefer that just now. I'm up to over 1,000 people listening to us every couple of weeks, so delighted. I never thought we'd get to that stage with this. We're only 15, 16 episodes in. I always finish on the last question, Ian, and it's always the same. And if there was a one penalty and it had to be scored to save your life, who has to take that penalty?
Oh, it definitely wouldn't be me.
That's the first time we've had that.
I remember
we get a lot of, it would have to be me.
No, probably Alan Shearer.
Shearer.
He used to bullet the ball into the top corner.
He had a fantastic technique of just smashing that ball, didn't he?
Yeah.
Great answer.
Graham Souness, another one. I think when he played for Scotland, he took some penalties and put it away. But Shearer. Wouldn't go by him.
Fantastic. Appreciate your time, Ian.
Not at all. Thanks, Lee.
Excellent.
Cheers.